protected.
Listen to Times Radio on your smart speaker. Just say, play Times Radio.
Early Breakfast with Rosie Wright on Times Radio with MHR, the HR, payroll and finance software empowering your team. Find out more at mhrglobal.com.
18 minutes past 5. There are two men on most of the front pages this morning. Justin Trudeau, of course, who stepped down as Canada's Prime Minister after 9 years in the job. We're going to look at particularly the ramifications in Canada just after 5:30. And Donald Trump's jibes constantly saying Canada and the United States will become one country. The other person on the front page of the papers, though, is, of course, Elon Musk. The Times lead story is Europe turns on Musk over attempts to sway voters. The Daily Telegraph's perspective is the Prime Minister says calls for grooming probe are far right. We'll discuss that in a moment or two. The Guardian says the Prime Minister condemns Elon Musk for lies and misinformation on abuse cases. The Mirror just have this one word, poison, and a photograph of Elon Musk. Well, let's go through the stories in more detail. The broadcaster, barrister, president of Octopus TV, Andrew Eborn is here. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Rosie. Happy New Year. A delight to join you as always.
Yeah, I know that you speak to Elon Musk's father from time to time. He was on Times Radio yesterday, actually. What do you think of this description from the Mirror to say Elon Musk is poison?
Well, Elon Musk, as you rightly say, Errol Musk is a regular on the Andrew Eborn show, and I was discussing all of the press that he was getting just yesterday, a few hours after Starmer came out saying all this sort of response. Elon undoubtedly helped Trump win the election. He's probably one of the most influential people in the world, and he's turning his attention not just to America, but obviously to the UK and various other countries in Germany and so on and so forth. And if you look at how influential he is, he's got 211 million people following him on Twitter, as opposed to 97 million for Trump. And I was looking at Starmer's got about 1.8 million, Farage about 2.2, and Kemi's got 278,000. People are really worried about Elon's influence. And to put it into context, is Errol, his father, was a politician from a very early age in his 20s. So Elon grew up in politics, and they talk about politics being about 50% of life is how he describes it. So growing up on that sort of thing, he doesn't just care about the business side, but also wants to have his say around the world. And that's clearly what he's doing. And that's upsetting for people who don't basically get his blessing.
Yeah, I wonder, though, lots of people now don't have favourable views towards Elon Musk. When we look at Europe, it's Macron, Olaf Scholz in Germany. I mean, has he gone too far, actually, and found himself making more enemies?
Well, again, I asked that, and some of the language that he used is certainly not language that we would use about Jess Phillips, for example, calling her a rapist apologist and so on and so forth. But no, in terms of going too far, he's clearly got the general public behind him, even if he hasn't got politicians. And it is interesting, people like Kemi Badenoch, who's suddenly in favour now because she's talked about opening up an inquiry into the grooming gangs, wrongly called. I mean, they're rape torture gangs. And he basically gets his favour. Everybody has to remember his influence is with the electorate, if you like, rather than the politicians. And I think that's the key thing to remember.
Well, that's what Macron is worried about, saying Elon Musk is sort of meddling directly, trying to intervene directly in elections. There'll be much more on this across the day. I want to talk about what the Prime Minister was keen for us to discuss, which was some of his NHS reforms. Front page of the Telegraph says, obese patients and smokers face being sent to the back of the queue for NHS surgery under government plans. Does that make sense to you, Andrew?
Well, it does, and I'll tell you why. What they're basically saying, if you're digging deeper into the story, they're saying you've got to be fit to have a look at these sort of things, and that's on that sort of basis. But it comes at the same time as they're talking about the priority of the NHS services for migrants and so on and so forth. So it is one of the sort of key areas where they need to get improvements. And what they're looking at is effectiveness, is how effective can it be for somebody to have an operation? And if you're not quite fit because you've been smoking too much or you're a bit overweight, they want you to get a bit fitter before you have that operation. So that's the real sort of story behind the headline.
Yes, they say tens of thousands of patients waiting for hip and knee surgery will be asked to first undergo a 12-week weight loss programme, which I think probably does make sense. And also, you look at the decreased risk of wound healing complications, 30% better for patients who don't smoke. So clearly it's better for everybody, the NHS and the patient, if you don't smoke and you're not overweight. But as we've talked about with smoking and weight loss, very, very tricky at times. Front page of the Times. Today, thousands of new plug-in points herald. Now, when I hear this phrase, I was slightly sceptical and dubious. An electric car revolution. Is the revolution upon us, Andrew?
Well, it's one of these things. Everybody has an obligation, if you like. They're getting rid of petrol and diesel cars, and that's why the electric cars are sort of getting there. But the biggest problem, and people are always scared, if you've got your electric car and it runs out and you're in the middle of nowhere, what on earth are you going to try and do? So getting these charging points, it's all about making sure the regulations are there, you're getting the charging points and tapping into the grid appropriately. So it's good news from that point of view. What they're also going to look at from a technology point of view is what's called dynamic charging. So whilst you're driving along, you can actually get your cars going. So expect to see a lot of headlines. A dynamic charging will be the buzzword which will be coming out again in the next few months.
How does that work, dynamic charging?
Well, basically, as you're driving along, you're getting charged. So that's how the car will keep going. So you don't have to worry about basically running out of power.
Because we've all read those stories about people trying to make a long journey and it just being so torturous and taking so long. But Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, confirmed Labour would press ahead with reverting to a 2030 ban on the sale of pure petrol and diesel cars. So, it's coming. The biggest problem has been charging points, particularly at things like service stations or in more remote parts of town. So, we'll keep an eye on that as well. Inside the Times, I think this was front page of The Sun yesterday as well, actually. Chase off thugs by playing classical music. This is what police have been telling residents. What's happening?
Oh, it's awful, isn't it? It's not so far from me at Regent's Park. This is householders in St John's Wood, where they say the average property price is about £1 million. I think they'll probably get you a cupboard somewhere in St John's Wood. Basically, the police have been called to a spate of drug-fueled problems and robberies. And one of the things they've encouraged them to do is look at playing classical music. They say you should ask your housing association or whatever to play classical music because it's proved that basically this will calm people down. They're unlikely to create problems. And this has been picked up by some companies, including rail operator Northern, which says playing Handel, Beethoven and Mozart at 35 stations has led to a reduction in groups loitering and causing nuisance. Well, I'm sure there's some other artists we could play who would stop crowds gathering. But also music, sound has always played a part in things like retail and so on and so forth. If you want your people to start shopping a lot quicker, then you play certain music which gets people far more active so they don't loiter. McDonald's restaurants and so on and so forth have had a look at that. But I think it doesn't sound very good when you ring up and you say you've got a problem because there's that sort of crimes being committed and you're just told, well, play classical music. But there is method behind the madness, and that's the method.
But isn't that amazing that actually playing classical music across transport networks reduces antisocial behaviour? That's the thing that McDonald's are trying to do as well. It would feel quite strange to go to McDonald's and listen to some Mozart. I'd quite enjoy that with my meal. There's another story.
Mozart, absolutely.
Yeah, there's another story about our senses actually, which is incredible. Electric salt that will deceive your taste buds. A spoon that mimics salt. Effectively has been on show at the Consumer Electronics Show, and it's gone down quite spectacularly.
Well, of course it has, absolutely. And as you say, this is the Consumer Electronics Show, which takes place in Las Vegas. It's the annual gathering there. And they show off all this new great tech. And what it is, you can lower your blood pressure, obviously, by reducing salt. And the Japanese firm Kirin, which is best known for the beer, they do a very good beer, they've got this new electric salt. And what it is, it's a $99 spoon. And what it does, it tricks your taste buds into thinking that there was basically sodium. There's salt already there, so your food tastes a bit better. You don't feel as though you're missing out. And apparently what's happened, it's a low sodium diet. Somebody tried it for about 3 months and they lost their appetite and started losing weight, dropping about 5 kilos. So basically the device's co-developer said that she started the project on that sort of basis. And it's tricking your senses. But we're going to see a lot of these things. And this is what the great tech thing shows. A lot of seismic advances in how we're going to prevent all these sort of diseases as a result of a technology.
I'm not
I've
sure
always been,
yet.
Put the AI into Britain. That's what we've got to try and do, as well as tech and robotics.
I'm not sure I want to be charging my my cutlery, and I think this spoon does need some sort of charging, but we'll see. Couple of things I wanted to mention. In the Times, Mel B has been talking. She said, hatred of Nepo babies is off the charts. That's, of course, if you are son or daughter to someone who's already walked some famous footsteps ahead of you. What's she sort of wanting? What's the point she wants to make?
Well, the point is this: it's a nepo as in nepotism. And what it is, they're talking about the offspring of celebrities, and the sort of level of hate and the backlash, if you like, has never been so bad. She's trying to do a series for Channel 4 about nepotism. And she said that one of 90 children's celebrities she contacted, very few wanted to take part. They said there's such a backlash and such a hatred about it. And basically, 2022 was the year of the Nepo baby. And you had people like Lily Rose Depp, the actress, and Kaya Gerber and Dakota Johnson and so on and so forth. And Brooklyn Beckham has also suffered from this, apparently, the son of David and Victoria, the eldest son there. And he's had all sorts of problems in spite of his marriage to Nicola Peltz, her hedge fund billionaire daughter. Basically, there's a lot of backlash on social media. And a lot of people can say, well, it can open doors, but it's no good. Those doors won't necessarily lead to the opportunities unless you've got the talent yourself. So a lot of people, I know lots of people who are offspring of very, very famous people, some of whom have benefited from the doors being opened, others of whom are living in the shadows. So it's a tough one.
Andrew, thank you so much, as ever, going through the papers with me, Andrew Eborn.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.